Hey everybody, how's it going? Here at Lobo Off-Road today, installing our new Composite Offroad 6-inch fender flare on the 22 Bronco. 4-door is what we're doing today. There's actually a 2-door and a 4-door. The 4-door is what we have the 6-inch flare for right now. Working on a 2-door set coming up soon. Check it out how we do the install. So fortunately and unfortunately, Ford designed their fender flares that only have 5 levers that basically hold it on. These 5 levers we actually eliminate in our carbon fiber fenders, so it makes it a completely bolt-on part because someone really wants your fender flares. If you're using these 5 tabs, it's all a matter of doing that right there, and that's what you don't want. But again, that's how easy it is to replace these parts. One thing you want to do once you pull these off is start out with a clean surface. So get yourself a nice little cleaner. We like to use this. Won't say what it is, but we like to use this just because it's nice, it's clean. Clean up your area so that you don't have any grime or anything that's impeding the surface of where you're going to be working at. So keep that nice and clean, and then you can start working from there. Fairly simple as far as the tools you'll need. Just need a 3/8 drill, take a 5/16 drill bit, and a 25/64 drill bit. The kit will come with 5 of these rib nuts, washers, and the nuts, or the bolts, and these bolts will take a blue Loctite on them. So take your 25/64 bit, and you're just barely going to shave the holes to make it fit. As you see there, it barely takes any material off. So now when we're drilling these holes, then again, make sure you remember, you're drilling out the holes that the rivets, the factory rivets, come in, which are these 5 holes. And once you're doing that, again, the rib nut is basically pressed into there, and then with that, it mushrooms out once to hold that part. So again, making sure you're drilling the correct ones because the bigger holes obviously don't work. So now you're taking your rib nut gun, take your rib nut, you're screwing that all the way to the base, coming up to your truck, pressing that, and screw the back of the gun, and you have your first rib nut done. As you see now, I've got all 5 rivets in now, and with this, just to explain, this tool is fairly easy to get. This you can get at any Harbor Freight, and I think right now they're charging like $49 somewhere around there for this part. So just in case you don't have one, which most of us don't, you can pick this up pretty cheap. So now that we have all 5 of our rivets in, now we'll take our fender, which actually has everything is preset with the guide holes in them. So everything has the same 5 holes there. Now remember, those are just guide holes, so you're just going to have to massage these holes to drill them because it being carbon fiber, they're not usually 100% exact. This is basically the fitment that we're looking for because we want this right in here, but everything needs to be bolted on to give us that look. Again, once we get our first bolt in, we got our first bolt and washer, put that through the first guide hole, and we're going to set it up to the fender to at least get our first one up. Once we get that situated, then we can start working on the rest of them to guide them in. All right, so now try to line up your second bolt hole, and we're going to do them all one at a time because you're going to have to adjust the measurement of where you're at just slightly to make sure that all the bolt holes line up. So if we can get the second bolt in, the second hole, we're good on that one, and then we can move on to the next as we adjust little by little to get all 5 bolts in. Step bit. Step bit you can also use to give yourself a little bit more room, because remember, these are just a 5/16 guide hole. So once you figure out that you're there, which these actually lined up pretty damn well, take your step bit and you're going to go down to the 3rd step, which that 3rd step is not very far, so just give yourself a little bit more room like this. to open it up. That way you've got a little bit of wiggle room. So you'll have to do that for probably just a couple of them just to make sure you line up correctly. This is actually at the very base. If you look at the Bronco, we'll go back to this to match it up. This hole is here. With the rest of these, you can actually adjust this way. This hole you have to adjust up and down. So we'll take this hole and we'll actually elongate it just a hair to make sure that it matches up with that hole. Now, a couple options you could do. If you got just a standard 5/16 drill bit, then you're going to take that drill bit and you're actually going to drill in a slight angle like that, and you can come back this way as well to clean that up. If you got a Dremel, you can take the Dremel and you're basically taking the same thing. You're coming up and back. But you'll only do that once you see where you need that bolt to be at. So don't just do that automatically. Okay, so let's get those others lined up and then we'll see what that one ends up. Again, you're starting back with your first bolt again. Do the first hole. Get it back in here. And you're lining it up. That way you've got something that you can hang the part on and not have to be holding it the whole time. Line up bolt 3. And you just go on a couple turns just to get it in there so that you take it back off, because you're going to adjust the later holes. You need to see where your hole is at here, because again, we're going to adjust up or we're going to adjust down depending on where we need to be on this hole. So this one we're going to hit at a slight angle, but let's try to change that and clean that up. And with that, you don't want to go too crazy, but if you're doing a side to side like this, you usually elongate that enough to clean it up. So now once you have all your bolts on, you're going to look for clearances, front, rear. You're going to make sure everything goes in as tight as you can to the body, because you want to eliminate any kind of gap that you have between the body line and the top of the flare. And you'll do that as you're tightening it down. You're adjusting it. You're going from one bolt to the next to make sure everything comes in to where it needs to be. Because like you'll see a little bit of a gap here. Once we get this adjusted, we'll be able to move this in closer to the body. So now we're just snugging this up to eliminate any gap, or as much gap as possible out of here. And you'll do that as you run through it, bolt by bolt. As you're doing that, did mention earlier, 10mm socket, 10mm wrench. So head size, you can kind of just go through and adjust these as you're going through. It's just pretty simple. You don't want to go tight until you're completely there. So once I'm done, I just like to go through it. Again, shoot it down with my best cleaner that I like. It's a purple bottle that everybody knows, but you're going through, just clean it up, check it out. And you see the difference from this plastic piece to the 6-inch carbon fiber piece. Huge difference on clearance that you can see, that actually gives you an inch wider than what it was factory. And now you're going to gain 2 inches on your clearance from here to here, compared to this fender that only gave you 6.5 to 7 inches. All right, so now we're going to move on to the rear. The rear is basically the same as the front. Ford's nice little 5 levers that they put on here. Makes it super easy, just shaking down those 5 levers and basically snapping parts off. Again, still doing the same thing. Give yourself a clean working surface, rocks, dirt, whatever, blocking what you're doing. Now, one thing you will notice on this rear fender, obviously different than the front, you've got bolts that are your pinch rails that hold this part together, with 4 different sections on this rear fender. We have holes that are actually cut out, which is part again of the factory flare, that eliminates you having to hassle with those bolt holes. And then you got, again, your guide holes that we're using to put this together. All right, so as you see, we finished up the rear fender. Same thing, 5 bolts, got it all lined up. Last part is a strip that actually goes on the door that covers here to complete that look. With that, to make sure it stays on, you actually have a pretty strong 3M tape, and you've got a promoter to clean the door and the strip to make sure that stays on there properly and it sticks for a long time. So again, that'll give you the final cleanup look. So give me a couple minutes and I'll have this on. All right guys, again, finishing this up. We finally got the last fender done. We got all the details in it. We got the door trim, everything on it. Took a little bit of adjusting to do. So if you guys have the right tools and everything, it should take you about an hour of fender. So it's a little bit of time if you're doing it at home. But hey, again, it's a 3K carbon fiber, 2 layers. It's a 2x2 weave, A+ carbon fiber, US made material. And again, I want to thank Chris at Lobo Off-Road for letting us come by and do this today. Made a big difference to look on the truck. So check it out. Composite Offroad Parts and Lobo Off-Road, one of our local dealers, to get these parts. Thank you.